Hello again. Good to be back. Hello, Peter, and welcome to Module 4. I hope everyone is enjoying these sessions so far, and that everything has been clear, and that the assignment is going well. And just remember, if there's any questions that you have, you can just reach out. There's a question and answer function within the system. So just feel free to use that or contact us by email if you have any questions. So let us dive in to Module 4, and we will, again, like the last couple sessions, we will start with the recentering, and we will be, again, bringing in one of the 8 being attitudes to set the scene for today's call. So then I invite you to find a comfortable position in your chair or wherever you are. Feel your feet on the ground. Take a moment to bring your attention to your breath. Perhaps you want to close your eyes. And just put aside anything that you have on your plate for today or anything that you've been busy with until now. Just so you can feel present for the next 15, 20 minutes. As we connect deeper to ourselves and deeper to our breath, deeper to our awareness, and as we start to feel the connection, let us bring into the space the being attitude called relentless experimentation and play. Relentless experimentation and play. And relentless experimentation and play is the measures the extent to which one embraces uncertainty and genuinely encourages playful experimentation. So embracing of uncertainty and encouragement of playful experimentation. This attitude is especially relevant in today's class because we're going to be moving from talking about the organizational performance metrics sort of in theory to putting them in practice and actually doing a role play and not knowing exactly where that conversation will go. So there's an element of uncertainty which is inviting us to be playful and to experiment. Peter and I will be demonstrating that today. And we will also be inviting you then to experiment with that afterwards. Maybe we can take 1 or 2 deep breaths into this space of experimentation and play. Maybe notice where it lands within you, in your body. How does it make you feel? Look at the image, the symbols, the words, to dare, to trust, to step in and create. It's an invitation to play together. And there's a sense of freedom that you see in this image. When you're ready, you can slowly slowly come back. Take another deep breath. Start.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. That was a good recentering to bring us into the being space. So I really like, how this attitude is going to really help us to be different, to be daring, to be trusting of your beingness, right? So that's what I'm reflecting on as you are helping us to do the recentering for this module 4.
Yeah, lovely, Peter. You're so right about the importance of experimentation and play and thinking about it in all contexts, including business development. And I think it's so important because of what we spoke about, module 2, I think, around the complexity and the chaos and all the uncertainty that we live in today. And the only way to really respond to that is with that openness and that desire to learn, to experiment, to try out new things, right? Because many of the things that we've assumed or that had worked for us in the past are actually not delivering the same kind of impact anymore. So there is this need to reinvent, to experiment with new things. So I think it's also very relevant for that context. And so you've also laid this up really nicely by saying that today what we're doing is moving from talking about the OPMs and the iceberg as a framework and as a model to seeing how can we actually use this framework as a way to open up really transformational conversations with our prospects, our clients, the people that we would like to be serving in the organizational context. So we're going to be really focusing on that today and on the doing, right? On the going from the being to the doing. Yeah, so let's just jump in. Let's dive in. Peter, maybe you can play the role of a prospect or a client, and I will be the facilitator or the coach or the one to help to see where are the openings, where are the opportunities to bring in this deeper human development work within the organization that you work for. So maybe you can just tell us very briefly what persona are you embodying for this exercise?
So I'll be the HR manager, and I think it's a medium-sized organization, maybe with say 30 or so employees. We are in the business we are in is it's, let me say, a service-orientated company, right? We provide, let's say, IT services, right? Support services. So that's a persona I will adopt in this role play. Is that okay with you, Mark?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's just jump in. Let's go.
Sure.
So this is the first time that we're meeting, Peter. I really appreciate your time. I know that you're very busy, but thank you for your interest in knowing a little bit more about the human potential approach to organizational development. So if I understand correctly, you're responsible for all the human resource work within your company. Maybe you can just tell me a little bit about what is it that that is really your key priority at the moment when it comes to developing your organization further, like taking it into the future?
Yeah.
Is there one or two things that really stand out for you?
Yeah, Mark, every HR manager today is facing a lot of changes, right? Over the last 2 years. And of course, you know, working as usual is no more usual, it's unusual. One of the key things that's surfacing, of course, is people do not come to the office, right? So there is the challenge of motivating and keeping the employees engaged, because they are not in the office. You cannot just walk across the door, right? So keeping them engaged, keeping them, ensuring that there is a safety in where they work, at home, that they have they're able to work in the right condition. So I think top of my mind, even though we've tried several ways of doing it, is how do I get them to be positive about the changes that are coming. I think one of the comments I heard, Mark, is that we've changed so much in 2021, and now 2022, we still have to change. When is this going to stop, and how am I going to cope with it, Mark? So these are the questions that is being asked.
That's really interesting, Peter. It's something that we hear quite a bit. That the only constant is change, right? That's something that we're quite familiar with. But I think it's even more true today, that the only constant is that things are just constantly changing. And so what I really like about what you're saying is that how do you remain positive in that context, right? And how do you create a sort of a culture? This is what I'm hearing, right? How do you create a culture, an environment where it is where people are encouraged or even motivated to embrace change, and to really make it part of their reality, and to have sort of a positive attitude towards it, rather than that it feels heavy, or that it's like, again, we need to change. So this positivity around change, would you say that is like, would you say that would be a key thing that
Yes, that's where I'm leaning to. I'm looking for ideas, and we do have a small budget for training, and if there's a choice, that's the place I like to look into, because I do agree. It's change is the only constant, and how do we help them to be more positive towards change, or more ready for change? What is it that gives them that assurance that the change is good?
Yeah, that's very clear, Peter. Let's, in the interest of time, let me just move on and show you, one of the frameworks that we work with that helps to get even more specific on, where the lever for the greatest kind of intervention might lie. And we call this the organizational performance metrics. So let's just have a look at it together. So getting things done, right? That's very obvious. It's about execution. It's about delivering results. Obviously very important. Customer orientation. So it's really looking at how well do we listen and respond to the needs of our clients? How in tune are we with the needs of clients? Inventiveness. It's the ability to create new things, new products and services. It's innovation. And then engagement. You spoke a little bit about engagement. Is the dedication that people feel towards their work, the sense of ownership that they have. Self-leadership. So that's an individual's willingness to rely on who they are, their deeper values, their principles, when navigating the complexities of an organization, or in your case, when navigating, the changing environment, right? So who are they in relationship to everything that's changing around them? And then trustworthiness is the extent to which an individual is deserving of the trust and the confidence that it receives from its people. So I'll put the question to you, but I'll also share where I heard you, what I heard when you were describing it, and it feels like this engagement, employee engagement, but maybe even more so the self-leadership area, is sort of what I heard you were talking about. But I want to play it back to you, Peter, and say, given these 6 and how I just briefly outlined them, where would you navigate towards? What would you say would be the key thing for you to focus on?
Yeah, I'm looking at 2 at this point in time. I know they're probably interrelated. I agree. Employee engagement obviously is, important, right? We do have employee satisfaction surveys and so on, and so we understand employee engagement. From my own, the other one is actually not so much self-leadership, because anyway, I'm looking more at trustworthiness, and it may be surprising because, first of all, trustworthiness, I think, is they got to trust. If I go to the employees and say, hey, look, we're going to support you with some development, all right? And I think the first thing they as I said earlier, they say, oh no, not another program, right? And I think if there is a way we can look at where they really can imagine that they can trust each one and everyone, and trust the leadership team, I think that would be meaningful for us.
Yeah. Okay, that's really insightful, Peter. It's and that's why it's always so important that that the question is asked back to the client, right? Because my intuition was drawing me into this area of self-leadership, but when I presented this to you, you were like, no, actually, it's trustworthiness. And I think that is really powerful, because it helps to focus. It helps to bring it into clarity where that opportunity lies, and also how some of these things are connected to each other, like thriving in change and being positive, and the connection with trustworthiness. It's not immediately clear, but what's important is the conversation around it, right? So this is really, really helpful. I hope that you're also getting something out of this conversation to help clarify your own mind. And what I would like to do now is just to take you briefly to a breakdown of trustworthiness, because this is the overall concept, but we also break it down into, I'll show you here, so into different ways in which companies or organizations can be expressing trustworthiness. And so you see here a scale from red to yellow to green to purple. And red is essentially saying that trustworthiness is not well expressed in the organization, right? So there's a big opportunity to work on that. Yellow is it's starting to get more expressed. Green is well expressed, and then purple would be fully expressed trustworthiness in the organization. So let me just give you a really quick rundown here. So red is basically saying that the company is not really operating according to clear guidelines and principles and values, and that some of these, or if it does have those values, that they're often broken. So the level of trust there would be quite low. Yellow would be that you kind of, as an organization, you do the strict minimum, so you follow the guidelines, but you don't go beyond that, right? So it's really a base level of trust. And then green would be that you really demonstrate a high level of integrity also in more complex situations. So when the complexity goes up, that there's still this high level of integrity that is role modeled throughout the organization. And then purple would be that you don't actually even need rules, right? Because there is this very strong inner compass, this inner knowing of what is right and what is the right thing to do. And so people tend to follow that rather than, strict rules or guidelines. So does this resonate with you at all? Do you see, if you would sort of map yourself against this framework, would you be able to place where your organization is today?
Yeah, as an IT service orientation, of course, we have rules, rules in the sense of policies, guidelines, standard operating procedures, for customer service, for our salespeople. We've all got pretty good guidelines. We've got all company values, but what is coming up to me is the word integrity. I think that's, for me, I see the key. If we are able to have conversations about integrity and create, new guidelines for integrity, then I think that would take away, the way I see it, incongruent behavior. That means the behavior you see is the behavior that is truly coming from the person, right? And I know trustworthiness is, and that's why I'm attracted to it, but I understand it's very difficult. So I've not seen many offerings in this, and therefore this really pick my, catch my interest. Yeah. That you have a way of a scale, if you like, to look at trustworthiness, and that I think is interesting for me, Mark.
Yeah, that's great, Peter. And what stands out for me is you picking up on integrity, level of integrity in more complex situations. So that element within the green box, which really correlates with what you were saying about positivity in the context of change, right? So you can look at integrity and positivity as sort of similar concept, and then complex situation and change also is a similar context. So there's actually a really nice parallel drawn to what you're pointing out here in the framework, what you were sharing with me at the beginning of this conversation. So if I understand correctly, you would sort of define the journey that your organization needs to go on is a journey from the yellow, which is applying the rules as they are stated, to the green, which is of course continuing to apply the rules, but also being able to do the right thing when there aren't really clear guidelines because the situation is complex in nature, and there you need to start relying more on that inner integrity.
And what's interesting for me, Mark, as I look at this, is that it gives us a direction, because I really like this sentence, right? The strong inner compass eliminates the need for rules and policy, right? I know we are not going to eliminate rules and policy. We already have good rules and policies and procedures, right? But it's the uncertainty of the environment, all right, that requires us to not only to rely, but there's something else that we can rely on. And this seems to me, it makes sense to me in the sense that I see a pathway. Now the question is, how difficult is it to get from where what we're talking about and how we're going there, and is it going to be, is it real? How do we substantiate this, right? So maybe this can be done with another conversation, but
Yeah.
I'd be really curious to know how practical it is, Mark.
Yeah.
Because I kind of like the pathway that is shown, where we, I think we are, and where, you know, the next stages are. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
let's see if we can, you know, make another time to talk about this a bit more.
Exactly.
If you like, you can send me things, or we can meet again. That's
Yeah.
fine with me.
Definitely, we should do that because you know, there is a very practical aspect to this as well. You know, right now we've just used the framework to kind of unlock where those priorities lie. But as you may be able to see here, you know, this can be measured, right? So we can actually see where the organization is. You know, are they in yellow and green, et cetera. And you know, this is just one part of a bigger framework, a more integrated framework, where underneath these 6 organizational performance metrics, or OPMs, lie a whole bunch of other measures that are more the human qualities that we can work on to unleash, you know, these OPMs. And I would love to take you through that in the next call, and show you how all of this is kind of hanging together, and how it can be measured, and then how do we actually support organizations on these types of journeys, from yellow to green, from green to purple. That's exactly the work that we do. So let's do that. Let's set up another time, and we can dig further into that. Thank you so much, Peter. I know we've gone a little bit over time. I hope
Yes.
it hasn't put your schedule off too much, but I really appreciated having this opportunity.